my number one kind of success metric is how I feel internally.
Can you heal while you're building a business?
Mental health is...
Oh, fuck, I'm my own boss.
My mum did ask, she was like, why are you doing this?
As a bisexual leader myself, I struggled a lot.
You have to enjoy the good moments, really, because it gets you through.
This is Create What Matters.
Hi everyone, welcome to a new chapter of Create What Matters. I am Letty.
And I'm Ali. Welcome.
And today we are launching our Impact Beyond Profit series, where we explore businesses that transcend traditional success metrics to create meaningful change in the world. In another word, to create what really matters. Our guest today is Michael Stevens. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, good. Founder of We Create Space, who exemplifies how purpose and profit can work in harmony. After experiencing burnout, which he's going to talk more about today in the corporate world, he transformed his personal struggles with identity and mental health into a thriving consultancy and learning platform and a global network while operating as a community interest company. In today's conversation, we'll explore how Michael built a business model where purpose and values are just as central as financial sustainability. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
A pleasure to have you. We'll also discover how We Create Space has reinvested over 1.2 million euros back into the LGBTQ plus community through paid work opportunities while partnering with more than 180 corporations to drive systemic change. Michael's story illustrates how businesses born from authentic self-knowledge can create ripple effects of positive transformation. That is music to my ears. Whether you're a creator, thinker, or entrepreneur looking to align your business with deeper values, today's episode offers insights on how passion projects can meet new market needs while creating a meaningful impact. Get comfortable and join us as we explore the powerful intersection of self-knowledge, purpose-driven businesses, and collective well-being along with Michael Stevens today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm blushing a bit from that introduction.
Yeah, great stuff. We're so excited to be talking to you today.
Yes, absolutely. Michael, we like to start our podcast usually with a question that relates to what it is and what it means. And after your journey from corporate burnout to building We Create Space, what would you say that your definition what truly matters and what truly matters for you now exactly, and how has it evolved over time?
Yeah, so I guess I'm seeing that question more as what does success mean to me? That's how I'm interpreting it, to be honest. And it's definitely changed over the years. I think success for me previously was all about reputation. It was about power and money, not necessarily in a ruthless way, but it was, part of the deal. You kind of enter into this unsaid, unspoken contract when you kind of work in the corporate world. And, it's a ladder that I'm climbing.
Yeah.
My ambition is to earn more next year than I am this year. And you kind of do what you need to do to get there. Yeah. And that unfortunately led me to really some unhealthy behaviors. And it also kind of led me to have some, I guess, unhealthy expectations of myself, of others. And really that led to this burnout, which was about kind of 6 or so years ago. And with that, I guess when you suddenly kind of lose your identity because you don't have a job and your job was everything to you, and then suddenly you don't have the money to pay for your apartment and you have to pack all your stuff into boxes, and then you have to leave the place where you live because you can't afford to live in the city because it's so expensive, and suddenly your friends, you don't have access to them. It's like, who am I without all of these things? And what that allowed me to do, actually, once I kind of was moving through this period of depression on the back of that, was it kind of allowed me to relinquish some of these expectations that I had of myself. And it made me realize that actually what was most important at that time was this sense of inner peace and really kind of this understanding that I want to leave the world better than how I found it. And so, yeah, for me, that is my number one kind of success metric, really, is how I feel internally. I'm not, a Zen master or something, I get stressed still, but it's really something to keep coming back to, especially as I start kind of working on my goals and objectives for the year. Kind of how do I want to feel at the end of the year, as opposed to what do I want to achieve.
Yeah. Nice. And I think that you talked about your burnout 6 years ago, it wasn't necessarily something that was talked about so much, right? I think it is way more common in the last 3 to 4 years, maybe. So how was that process for you? Like, how did you identify what you were going through? And was it something that was diagnosed, or is it something that you look in hindsight and you can identify it now?
Yeah, we're very lucky now. I think mental health is, very, I guess, talked about in everyday life more, which is great. And because I think through talking about it, we can really understand ourselves better. There are so many aspects to mental health, and sometimes we just think about it as, mental illness, but actually mental health is kind of really the power to understand our thoughts, our behaviors, our beliefs, and kind of do that from a healthy perspective. So really understanding your mental health is really powerful. Yes, 6 years ago, burnout was actually, I thought it was on par to me coming out actually as gay. It was that level of kind of shame that I felt that I was never going to be able to get a job in that industry again. People were forever going to know me as, the one who couldn't handle it. And it got diagnosed by a doctor who I couldn't move my neck. I woke up one morning and it was just so kind of spasmy.
Your body was speaking out loud.
Oh, there were plenty of kind of symptoms before that, and I just chosen to ignore them. So I'd got like eczema on my body. I had insomnia, really bad digestive issues. But I just kept telling myself, I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'll deal with it tomorrow. And I mean, this is unfortunately a pattern that I've found myself in previously, dealing with mental health challenges, but not knowing that they were mental health challenges. So not knowing how to really find help and support either. Again, I lived with an eating disorder for about 15 years, and again, the shame of that stopped me from asking for help. And unfortunately, in Western medicine especially, we're kind of dealing more with the symptoms as opposed to the root cause. And so I'd never really got to the bottom of what was driving these behaviors until I fully invested in some therapy, which, I'm still going through that today.
Absolutely. It really sounds like you have been from your depression until here in this healing journey, from burnout to self-knowledge, and to really discover and align with who you really are. I think self-knowledge is about that, understanding who you really are and being in coherence and in alignment with that. I think that is such a beautiful thing. And now with everything you're doing to serve others and to create that ripple effect, as we mentioned in the introduction, my question to you is, can you heal while you're building a business? Are those two things possible?
It's such a good question, and one that I don't think has a definitive answer, because I think there are so many different phases, and running a business is a roller coaster ride, and it's a roller coaster ride every day that you kind of have to strap yourself in.
It's a spiritual journey in itself.
And I think there is a difference between, starting a business, growing a business, running a business. Like, all of these things have very different kind of approaches, I would say, and different challenges. And because there's something really liberating about starting a business. It's like, I'm doing this for myself now, and all of that work that, I was doing for somebody else, now it's for me, and I get to decide on anything from the branding to who I work with. Exactly, I'm my own boss. And then it sets in like, oh, it's just me.
Manage yourself now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, I'm my own boss.
And
Not that great of a boss.
well, I guess for me, I recognized that I was not a great boss when I was working in corporate, because I was projecting a lot of my own unprocessed adversity onto other people. So, I'm still a recovering perfectionist, but really I was so invested in my own career development that I wasn't gonna let anybody else get in the way.
Exactly. With that mentality.
Yeah. Whereas now I approach running a business and managing a team very differently. I really do pride myself on the human-centered approach to running a business, which again comes with so many challenges, because trying to run a business doesn't always align with trying to gift people with compassion and also kind of just understanding that life is lifing a lot of the time. And so I think, can you heal yourself while running a business? I think for sure there are healing aspects, but if you are not careful, the same patterns can just emerge and or new ones as well. And I think the challenges there are remaining kind of grounded and true to your values, really.
Absolutely.
And I think that here we tap into creating the business itself, and you transition from this corporate roles that you were mentioning to founding We Create Space. And that is definitely a big shift from an industry focused, very high paced, fast, profit driven thing to more towards a more impact oriented work. How did you reconcile the need for financial sustainability and your purpose in that journey? And can you explain to us what We Create Space is? Because I think it's important for people to know what it is, because it's an amazing project and company.
Yes. So We Create Space has evolved a lot over the last 5 years. What started as just a Zoom link that I would join from, my childhood bedroom in my parents' house has now evolved into this kind of global platform, consultancy, and a network, of over 35,000 individuals who attend our free events. And really, we are focused on community building and culture shaping. So we support businesses all around the world with creating more inclusive environments, really, for their employees. And we do that mostly through these kind of digital learning experiences. So that's kind of events like workshops and webinars and different kind of programs, leadership programs and things like that. And then we reinvest our profits back into the communities that we're working with.
Nice.
In terms of how I started the business, well, actually it was during COVID. We Create Space was a side project, and the original project wasn't possible. The original business wasn't possible because of COVID. It really was reliant on in-person events. And so this project became something that, I was able to do online with a friend of mine. And really, it just took off. It wasn't intended to make money initially. Actually, it was more of a kind of, can we kind of get this to fund itself whilst I'm applying for grants, whilst I'm trying to get some funding. But during COVID, every single nonprofit was applying for more money. And so we decided actually to move away from the charity kind of structure. And that was why kind of we chose the CIC structure. But the one of the reasons why I was able to do this was I had savings. I was very lucky that I had savings, and I moved home to look after my parents for COVID. They're in their 80s, and I didn't have to pay rent, and it was very much thanks to them that I was able to put my savings towards this new kind of project. And my mum did ask, she was like, why are you doing this? And I was like, I don't know, it's a calling. It really feels like it's going to be something. And we really make any money for the first year, and then I ran out of money, and that was when I decided to stop pursuing the charity status structure and change it to this new structure, and really kind of develop the business side of it.
This structure is really interesting, a community interest company. Can you explain more about what that means and how this business structure supports the mission and impacts your decision making versus if we compare it with a traditional for-profit model?
Yeah, so I don't know if this structure exists anywhere outside of the UK, but essentially it sits between a charity and a limited company. So it's a limited company, but with social enterprise commitments. So you have to reinvest your profits either back into the business or back into the communities that you're working with. There's also limitations around kind of dividends and kind of how much you can sell shares on afterwards as well.
Okay.
And for me, I'll be honest, like I didn't know too much about the structure. It's a fairly kind of unheard of, but it's actually worked out really well in the end.
I'm so surprised that this exists. It's amazing. If you want to do this with this mentality, which is a purpose-driven mentality, it should become more commonplace, I suppose.
Yeah, I think there are businesses out there that make the commitments without having to, legally abide by some of these rules. But for me, it just made sense.
Yeah.
As we had already seen after a year, a community forming. And for us, it really is an ecosystem that we've built.
Yeah.
There are so many different elements to it, and they all work together, and no one part really can exist without the other. It's certainly challenging because it's like running a business and a charity at the same time, and both of those have very different goals. And also kind of just the way that we reinvest is it's more continuously, so trying to kind of track that is a challenge.
And so your business model today is more related to corporate partnerships, funding community initiatives. Could you give us examples of the type of community initiatives that you do? And if someone else that also had ideas and purposes and wants to do something similar, what advice would you give to them to have this balance between profit and purpose like you are having with the
the community initiatives actually change every year because we ask the community what it is that they need.
You co-create with them.
Totally, and we do some broader data collection twice a year where we kind of ask the entire community, and then we're also collecting data continuously throughout the year at every event. And so that really allows us to shape things with them. And they can range from more kind of leadership development workshops, networking opportunities, well-being classes and retreats, and more kind of broader programs around kind of supporting growth and personal development as well.
Your face lights up when you speak about this.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah.
And what are the changes that you saw in the community in these spaces and in these events? Like, where did you see the impact most in the community so far? It can even come from a personal perspective.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes looking at these big in terms of kind of, for us, these data sets where we're kind of gathering a bit more broad impact, and seeing some of the numbers can sometimes light me up a bit.
Yeah.
I still take things quite personally. So when I read, a comment of where something could be improved, for me, I take that very personally, and I kind of really want to make things better.
Yeah.
And so, I think impact just in terms of people's learning journeys, learning about themselves, learning about other people, learning about the world. That's a really kind of strong metric that we track. And then I think just sometimes I'm on a hike or something. We do these monthly hikes, and someone will just tell me that they made all of their friends at my event, that I hosted.
So
or some people have met their partner Some people have got a new job. So it really kind of is quite heartwarming. Yeah.
That is the ripple effect, right? You move, you put this thing in the world, and then the magic and the energy of it is creating all of these possibilities and these outcomes for the people that are engaging in this beautiful events.
Someone once told me, someone that I respect who runs quite a large community organization, they said, don't ever expect to get more back than you give when running a community, because it is hard work. It is draining sometimes, but that is why sustainability and building legacy models is really important as well, because sometimes we can't go on forever, doing this, or at least, as we said, life is lifing and things happen in our personal lives, and that just kind of helps us, or we're forced to reprioritize what happens.
To recalibrate and recalculate. And you mentioned something around metrics. And what is interesting about your work is that it addresses both personal growth and systemic change. So how do you measure and communicate this less tangible, perhaps more abstract impact of your business alongside those traditional metrics or ways of proving success, quote unquote?
Yeah, it's tricky, because I think with companies wanting to, I guess, see the impact of the work that they're doing, it's not always possible to, immediately after a program, gather that information, because sometimes it takes time for those learnings to settle in. And also, it really depends on the psychological safety that you've built within your company, whether people are willing to come forward with some of that information. I think when you look at professional development, companies track that in different ways, depending on whether someone is either being promoted or whether they decide to do a kind of side switch, to a different profession.
Yeah.
So all of these things, I guess, have to be agreed up front, and they can't be kind of switched afterwards, because really that influences the format that we deliver some of these kind of experiences. I think it's really important to do a combination of quantitative and qualitative, especially when looking at more kind of intersectional experiences as well, and really trying to understand kind of where are some of those cracks that people are maybe falling through in our systems and our processes.
Measuring culture and measuring how that, you're always dealing with culture in a way or another. So I think that also, it's not easy for you to understand the culture just putting your toe in the water. You have to really dive in, and you have to really understand it. And then sometimes these changes do take time, because it's not something that will happen in the first generation. Sometimes it's the second generation, even more, right?
And there's nothing worse that you can do really than go out with this big survey asking people to give their everything, and then you don't do anything with it.
Right.
Because then you've lost all the trust.
Absolutely.
So sometimes it's actually about starting small. It's about kind of just doing a small focus group or something like that. And really being realistic about, okay, well, what capacity do we have? Because if you don't have, sometimes it's just one person, and it might not even be their full-time job. They're just volunteering.
Right.
And suddenly and they obviously take it very personally, because they've volunteered, and you need to look after sometimes these individuals, because they are the ones driving forward this.
In a way or another, I usually say that every change in a company requires this evangelist, this person that will take on the project, but also sponsorship as well, because sometimes these people cannot run by themselves or do it by themselves. They need space and they need sponsorship. How important do you see sponsorship in companies in this consulting?
Massively important, especially when leadership changes often, and so really there needs to be a buy-in at every level. And so sponsorship is hugely important to ensure that there is a voice in the room that's being heard, that these initiatives don't just fade away. And I think it's actually quite an exciting opportunity for someone at that level as well to get into some of the detail. It's not easy, but really that is a growth opportunity for them as well.
Yeah. And now that we're talking about building, you said there are many phases when we're creating a business. One is to create it, one is to grow it, one is to scale it. So when it comes to scaling a business, and knowing that it's a challenge and a spiritual journey in itself, how do you manage scaling and growing your business without compromising your values? Because I think that can be often a challenge. How have you approached this growth that you've had over these 6 years while maintaining that alignment, that coherence with yourself and your values?
It's been difficult. I don't think it's been difficult to maintain the values, but it's been difficult to deal with the outcomes of maintaining values and growth, and sometimes unexpected changes. So, I mean, we've grown minimum 30% every year, and that has led me to, in some stages, hiring a lot more people. And with that, you know, I've noticed the stress then that adds to me, to everyone. And actually, the industry that we work in, it's very unstable right now, I would say. There is a lot of uncertainty, and it's heavily influenced.
Especially now, no?
Yeah.
The pushback or the questioning or...
Exactly, yeah. There's a lot of debate over things that don't really need to be debated.
Exactly.
But politically, things are being used and weaponized.
Exactly.
So the trends that we have seen have not necessarily been the same year on year. So it's quite difficult to plan.
Yeah.
So you either...
It's very volatile.
It's totally. Yeah. And so that has left us in, you know, some challenging situations. But the fact that I have approached each and every, you know, hire and every relationship with a degree of, I guess, transparency and honesty, and really kind of explain to the team what is happening, it's made it a bit easier. It's not ever easy to have to let people go or to have to pivot. I mean, this is like year 5, and I think it's pivot 5.0 as well. But that is part of, I think, as well, startup culture, which is also exciting, because really we're able to be agile, we're able to adapt to the needs of the client as well.
Yeah, and in a way, it's how you are showing up even in these uncertain times for yourself and others, right? Uncertainty is guaranteed, right? Change is guaranteed. Then how you're showing up to them, it's so cool that you're also managing this with absolute transparency and just calling it how it is with your team in these uncertain times, in these difficult times. I think that is a great attribute that many more leaders should have in many spaces, not only in the tech space or startup space, but in the corporate space, in the business space, to really show up with transparency and honesty among
and I don't get it right every time, but I really do recognize that this is a learning process for me as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm very lucky to have an incredible team and work with just such wonderful people. And so it really does feel like a privilege to kind of have those relationships.
Yeah. I feel that's oftentimes one of the things I've learned in those processes, trying to remain honest and trying to remain open, is that we sometimes also maybe overshare a little bit as leaders. And I think that one of the learnings that I've had and the things I tried the most is like, how much do I actually need to share? Because I know that full transparency is important, and honesty and opening, but sometimes it, and also scare people. As you said, it's a roller coaster, and sometimes I'm just pushing up and I don't see the end of that. Like, when is it gonna go down? And I'm just gonna be able to like jump in and go down, like, and just move fast. And I think that that is a weight that being founder, CEO, and owner of the company, sometimes you carry for yourself.
Yeah.
How much do I share? How much do I hold to myself? And what do they need to know? What is honesty, but what is also me trying to unload a little bit of the worries that I have on other people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's something that I struggle with sometimes, and I still have to tap back into like, okay, is this necessary for them to move forward, or is it necessary for me? And I should be able to deal with this in a different way, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the answer that I always come to is create more space, because it's often in those times of intensity where I'm unable to make those calculated decisions. Because, yeah, you're right. There's an element of I want to be transparent, but there is also an element of this is a business and we need to keep people motivated as well. And we don't want to scare people.
Exactly.
And things are moving all the time,
Yeah.
you know? So this is when the question was about, like, can you heal running a business? I mean, I think there are moments when it feels like, wow, this is me living in my purpose, being who I'm meant to be. And then there are moments where, I'll be honest, like I don't sleep because of worry. It affects my digestion. And part of me understands that this is an element of just running a business.
It's a lifestyle.
It
Being an
is.
entrepreneur is a lifestyle, and a
Yeah.
purpose-driven entrepreneur, it has that additional DNA, right? That additional weight, if you will, but that additional award or reward from the purpose and the ripple effects and what you're putting out in the world for others.
You have to enjoy the good moments, really, because it gets you through the
bad
challenging,
ones.
the bad ones.
Yeah.
As a recovering perfectionist, do you allow yourself to celebrate those moments?
Yeah, I think the celebration comes sometimes unexpectedly. It's like little conversations, or it's projects that I'm just really passionate about. And also it's just sometimes looking back and thinking I could never have even imagined that this is what I would be doing right now.
6 years ago, you would
No
never have
way.
imagined you were here.
Yeah. It's it shows you that, because I'm a big kind of manifester, and I love kind of goal setting and all those things, but there's a degree of kind of remaining open to possibility as well.
To uncertainty,
to uncertainty, and you know, the universe has a different plan for me, maybe.
To surrender to the universe, if you want to call it that. Yeah.
I have a friend that he usually tells a really nice way of like celebrating life, which is like, if you could take a picture of this moment right now and show it to yourself 5-10 years ago, but without any context, just show the picture of this moment. How do you think you would feel about yourself? And I like to do that in different moments in my life. I'm just like, holy fuck, this would be amazing. Like if I saw myself 5 or 10 years ago doing this now, I'm like, this is my life now. This is so cool.
Yeah.
So I really like to take those photographs sometimes of like, I'm going to keep this into like my celebration memory and space, because we forget that it's just the next thing and the next thing. And I think we forget those special moments, you know. So I like to take mental pictures of life.
Yeah. And you know what, actually, it's sometimes the evolution of relationships as well. So even just my relationship with my mother has changed a lot since I've started this business, because
How so?
it's really just allowed us to get closer. She's super interested in what we're doing, and I never thought that I would have that kind of relationship where she's kind of, you know, very proud of the work that I'm doing. She's always been proud of me, but I guess in a more traditional sense. And now the conversations that we have are much more meaningful as well, and it's kind of put us into a new relationship. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That is amazing. And you've also mentioned that queer leadership is about challenging the status quo. How can, in your opinion, businesses incorporate this approach to create a more meaningful, substantial impact beyond the bottom line?
Yeah, queer leadership for me is about redefining what leadership is, or what being a leader is, and really looking at it differently. So it's looking at it from a different perspective. And I think it comes back to a bit what we were discussing earlier about not all putting all the emphasis on external factors like recognition or hierarchy, power,
More
money.
like these vanity metrics.
Yeah, because that's kind of what we sometimes associate with leadership. And so really queer leadership is about kind of understanding self. It's about recognizing emotions and really kind of looking at mental health as a positive and I guess just approaching relationships with compassion and care as well, and just having a more human-centered approach.
I think it's very admirable that you were able to create I think that it resonates and it inspires people in so many different levels, because not just the community that you're building, but also showing that it is possible to do this and to do a business out of something that right now is being discussed as not necessary, or like a policy inside companies that people are not investing in anymore in a way or another. Looking forward and thinking about the next years of We Create Space, and this next year maybe, how do you see this relationship between purpose and profit evolving in your business, and how do you see it moving forward? Like, what is the next chapter that we're talking here?
Well, there's lots going on this year, but something that I'm really excited about is season 2 of our We Create Space Awards.
Oh, wow.
So that's where we're recognizing queer leaders creating space for the community. And I think what I'm excited about is getting brands involved, because I think gone are the days where they can just put a rainbow sticker on something, or really gone are the days as well where it's all about numbers. I think actually now we're getting into, okay, what's the actual community impact and what's the felt impact of these experiences and these initiatives. So really kind of creating these awards to celebrate and recognize, but also create these meaningful relationships with brands and with, I guess, other individuals passionate about creating change as well.
Thank you, Michael. That's been very interesting to hear. And about you personally, what excites you as a human this year? If you separate Create Space from Michael this year.
Yeah, I would say one of my long-term goals has been actually to create some separation. It's been really important. It was very difficult in the early days, but now I'm seeing that, as we talked about, creating that sustainability, creating that succession line of how I can keep this going is, part of separating myself from the organization. I'm successful sometimes with that and others not. But I think for me, really, this year is all about well-being and managing my health and creating meaningful relationships with the people that I love and spending time in the places that I love as well.
Thank you for sharing. That's very meaningful to hear, and I wish you the most success with that journey and that separation to gain that well-being that is so necessary to manage both parts.
I think that as a bisexual leader myself, I struggled a lot throughout my journey to find others and to see others. I think that we discussed so much that the bisexual community is probably one of the biggest ones, and because of the lack of not only representation but talking about it openly, other women and other men don't really see themselves in those positions or in those ways. It's just something in their mind, and I think it was in my mind for many years, and I realized how important it is for us to actually mention it and to say it, even if we are in more heteronormative relationships, so others can also see themselves in those space. So for me, knowing that you are doing this work and you're creating this space for people is just amazing. So you really inspire me, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank
It's been
you.
amazing to hear you from the human and business perspective and how these two things can coexist. I've learned so much, and I hope we can talk to you again and hear about the wonderful things that you're doing. And kudos for those ripple effects, because I think it takes a lot of courage to do that. I think there should be more people, but I think that is a special quality, and I commend you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, just to end, I guess courage and risk go hand in hand, right? And
Yeah.
we're talking about business, and we're talking about growth, and I think that is something that I've also had to reconcile. Is you don't get some of these results
One without the other.
One without the other. Yeah.
They go hand in hand. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. We'll be continuing to having meaningful discussions about lasting impact, purposeful conversations. And until the next one, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Letty.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
See you next
See you on the
time.
next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.